Welcome to Chapter 12, Section 3, entitled Solving Addition Equations. To begin with, inverse operations are operations that undo each other, such as addition and subtraction. So I'd like you to add this into your notes a little bit here. Inverse operations. Plus undoes minus. Minus undoes plus. Multiplication undoes division. Division undoes multiplication. I'm going to go one further. There's something you don't have to worry about this, but a square root undoes a square. Right? If whatever operations you have, there's an inverse operation that undoes it. So addition, subtraction, they undo each other. Subtraction, addition, it undoes one another. And what we're going to be trying to do in this solving addition equations is we need to isolate. We need to isolate the variable. And the way you need to think about it, you need to undo you're going to undo what is being done to the variable, and there's a very important part here on both sides. Okay. So you can undo whatever you want as long as it's on both sides. So, using these models. Now let's see here, everyone. Using models is good for initially understanding it, but really, in the grand scheme of things, these models, you're not going to actually draw a model every time. Okay. You're going to use method 2. But what this means here is you have a variable, x, and you have a bunch of positives. So, if I remove one positive from here, I remove one positive from there on both sides. There's getting rid of that, getting rid of that, again, on both sides. Get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of that, get rid of that. So what we've done is we have then removed some positives, which means it's 4 minus 4. 5 minus 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. So what you're doing is you're using these counters, this model, to come up with it. Now, what's going to be better in the long run for you to figure out is by undoing. We need to isolate the variable. So here's the variable. We need to get it by itself. So what is being done to the variable? Well, right here, we're having a plus 4. Well, what undo a plus 4 with minus 4. So 4 minus 4 on both sides. 5 minus 4 is 1. Therefore, the solution is 1. And I'm going to add something here for you to then check. If you want to make sure you get a correct answer, you should check. So, when I check, I do x plus 4 equals 5. And I look at what my solution is, and I put it in there. 1 plus 4 equals 5. 5 equals 5, and you're done. All right, so this key concept here is basically when I say both sides. When you do something to both sides, the equation doesn't change. Like let's hear 4 equals 4. That's equal, right? Well, let's add 1 to both sides. 5 equals 5. They are still equal. Let's minus 3 from both sides. That's 2 equals 2. Shoot, we could even divide by 2 on both sides. 2 divided by 2, 1 equals 1. You end up with the same equals equation. So this is key. Both sides means equality. So again, models, not that useful in the long run. What this is telling us to do is it's telling us, all right, here's x and 11 positives equals 7. So using the model, we could, like before, you could, oh, I see, try to do some canceling out, but there's not enough. So we add some of these. Remember, a plus and a minus undoes one another. And when I remove 11, all that's left over are these negatives. And so our x equals 4 negatives, or negative 4. Now, writing an equation, here's your x plus 11. What is being done to the variable? Well, we're doing a plus 11. So we undo a plus 11 with minus 11. So we subtract 11 from both sides. Now this is where our subtraction, our previous lessons on subtraction come into play. Here's a number line. We're at 7. Here's 7. And I'm subtracting 11. So I'm going 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Right there. That 11 represents a negative 4. 7 minus 11, negative 4. And then check to see if we are correct. All right, let's work these out. Now, we are not going to use models, but we are going to show our work. I'm going to write the equation down. I'm going to say, all right, well, what's being done to the variable? We're plussing 9. So we're going to isolate the variable by undoing the operations. Isolate variable, undo operations, and make sure it's on both sides. M plus 9. Well, isolate the variable, undo operations. So what undoes a plus? A minus. What undoes a plus 9? Well, a minus 9. And do it on both sides. M plus 9 minus 9 becomes M. 3 minus 9 becomes negative 6. You could use a number line. You could use a lot of different things. But 3 minus 9 is negative 6. Here, isolate the variable. Actually, you should pause the video and try this on your own. But x is being isolated. So we undo the operation. To undo addition, it's subtraction. And we're instead of adding by 7, we're going to subtract by 7. X equals 13 minus 7, which is 6. So these are my two solutions. All right, not too much further here. Subtraction property of equality can be used to solve an equation subtracting the same number from each side of the equation. So subtraction property of equality can be used. And that's what we've been doing. Subtracting the same number from both sides. So let's take a look at this problem here. Okay. It says the width of Pennsylvania from north to south is 280. This is 120 miles more than the length of the state, east to west. Write and solve an addition equation to find the length of Pennsylvania. So, x is going to represent the length of Pennsylvania. And the length is 120 more, so more means plus, than the 280. So x plus 120, we're going to use a subtraction from both sides. 280 minus 120 is 160. So the width of Pennsylvania is 160 miles. All right, and let's see if that makes sense. The width of Pennsylvania, I think there's a mishap here. I think this should be the length. So the width of Pennsylvania from north to south is 280. This is 120 more than the length. So the question is, those differences are 120. All right, let's write a variable for this. Steve was on the internet for 40 minutes last night. This was 15 more minutes than Beth spent on the internet the same night. Write and solve an addition equation to find the amount of time Beth spent on the internet. So, the variable x is going to be Beth's time. So 15 more minutes than Beth. So if Beth's time's x and it was 15 more minutes, x plus 15, is Steve's. So I've written my equation. Here's my equation. X plus 15 equals 40. And now, to isolate the variable, and undo operations, isolate the variable, undo the operation. What is being done to the x? Well, plus is being done to the x, so we minus. It's plus 15, so we minus 15. And that means that the amount of time Beth spent on the internet was 25 minutes. All right. So the CYUs for this section are on pages 646, and it's going to be 1 to 5 all. And then in class, we'll work on these as much as we can. Good luck.